Hello, everybody. Welcome to Integrated Medical Biochemistry by Dr. Bijoya. Today we will discuss about biochemical changes due to proteinuria in nephrotic syndrome. So let us see colloidal osmotic pressure or COP. Oncotic pressure is a form of osmotic pressure exerted by proteins, chiefly albumin. Albumin is 50% of the total proteins in circulation. It contributes to 80% of the COP due to the following properties. Albumin has low molecular mass of 67 kilodaltons compared to globulins. It has high negative charge, so it contributes to Donan equilibrium. It attracts cations and repels anions out of the capillaries. Its net negative charge causes ions to redistribute between the intravascular and interstitial spaces. Now this is the cross section of a capillary. So this is the inner portion of the capillary and this is the interstitium. Now you can see that inside the capillary there are albumin by shown with the yellow squares. Then there is water shown with the spheres, and there is sodium ions. So the whole mechanism has to be understood that albumin is negatively charged, so it attracts positive ions or cations like sodium from the interstitial fluid inside the capillary, and water is attracted in turn by the sodium, so it also follows sodium inside the capillary. This is how the volume of the blood is maintained. Now, when there is increased glomerular permeability in certain diseases like nephrotic syndrome, there is increased filtration of plasma proteins. Now, increased filtration of plasma proteins will show chiefly three types of effects. One, there is urinary loss of proteins carrying hormones, metals, and vitamins. So, the second effect will be albuminuria, and the third effect will be reduced cellular immunity. So, let us see now each effect. When there is increased filtration of proteins from the glomerulus, there is alteration in the coagulation factors. So there may be hypercoagulability. Now this can lead to thromboembolism. So a patient of nephrotic syndrome has a risk of thromboembolism. Now, the other effect of albuminuria is there is increased tubular reabsorption. Actually, the renal tubules need not reabsorb albumin because the glomerulus never filters it. But in case of nephrotic syndrome, the glomerulus is unable to retain the albumin, so the tubules try to reabsorb this filtered protein. This causes tubular damage and it may cause tubular dysfunction. This also leads to tubular catabolism of albumin, and further it aggravates hypoalbuminemia, which means reduced albumin concentrations in the blood. Now, reduced albumin concentration in the blood again has two effects. One is it causes edema due to accumulation of interstitial fluid, and the second effect is increased hepatic synthesis of lipoproteins. This is a compensatory mechanism that is taken up by the liver, because most of the plasma proteins are synthesized in the liver and there is decreased albumin. The liver tries to compensate this by increasing the levels of lipoproteins. Now, this causes hyperlipidemia and it may lead to lipiduria. The other effect is reduced cellular immunity, because immunoglobulins are also proteins which may be excreted in the urine, and this leads to decreased immunity of the patient, causing increase in infection. So it may lead to urinary tract infections, respiratory infections, and pneumonia. Now there are two theories of edema formation. One is the underfill theory and the other is overfill theory, which we will see a little later. Let us see the underfill theory. which says that intravascular space, there is massive loss of protein due and which leads to hypoalbuminemia. So now because of this loss of albumin in the circulation, there is hypovolemia and in the vascular space, whereas in the interstitial space there is escape of fluid from the blood vessels into the interstitial space and it causes edema. Now because of this there is another mechanism which will get activated, which is the renin angiotensin axis, and it will cause the release of antidiuretic hormone. This antidiuretic hormone will increase the reabsorption of sodium and water. This will further lead to increase in edema, and there is deterioration of edema. So this is the underfill theory. Pleural effusion, let us see what happens. In pleural effusion, there is excess fluid that accumulates between the two pleural layers, the fluid filled space that surrounds the lungs. It occurs when the rate of pleural effusion formation exceeds the rate of fluid absorption. As you can say that the rate of pleural fluid formation and absorption are same. So there it has to be same in order for fluid to not deposit around the lungs in the pleural. Now in pleural effusion what happens is that there is transudative there is either transudative or exudative effusion. In transudative effusion, which generally occurs in nephrotic syndrome, there is increased hydrostatic pressure or low plasma oncotic pressure. This as I told you occurs chiefly in cirrhosis, nephrotic syndrome, and hypoalbuminemia, and this leads to accumulation of fluid in the pleural space, and this is generally low in protein and LDH, whereas in exudative effusion it occurs due to inflammation and increased capillary permeability, which is seen in pneumonia, cancer, TB, viral infections and autoimmune disorders, and this fluid is rich in protein and LDH. So this is the difference between a transudate and exudate. So what exactly is ascites? There is actually intrahepatic resistance due to ongoing inflammation, which increases intrahepatic vascular pressure leading to portal hypertension. There is splanchnic and peripheral vasodilation mediated by nitric oxide. It may lead to tachycardia, and there is baroreceptor mediated activation of renin angiotensin aldosterone system. There is effective decrease in arterial volume, and this will lead to formation of renal vasoconstriction, and sodium and water will be retained, which will increase the fluid, and this will deposit in the abdominal cavity, and this is known as ascites formation. So this ascites can occur in nephrosis as well as in cirrhosis. Now, in most patients with nephrosis, in the early stage, the underfill mechanism will operate, whereas in the later period, a new steady state will reach with a normal or expanded blood volume, which is known as the overfill mechanism, where there is intravascular volume expansion and it due to sodium retention, and this will cause further reabsorption of water and transcapillary movement of the fluid into the interstitial space. Now let us see what are the metabolic changes that occur in a patient with nephrotic syndrome. So let us look into the changes that hepatocytes undergo and the liver metabolism undergoes due to proteinuria. So the first change that occurs is there is massive proteinuria, because of which LDL receptors are not expressed in sufficient quantities. So LDL from the plasma is not cleared by the liver. The second thing that happens is there is decreased intrahepatic cholesterol synthesis, and so this leads to activation of ACAT enzyme. ACAT enzyme actually esterifies cholesterol to cholesterol ester, and the second change that occurs is that there is inhibition of 7 alpha hydroxylase enzyme. 7 alpha hydroxylase enzyme is an enzyme of bile acid synthetic pathway where cholesterol is converted to bile acids. So there will be decreased bile acid formation and increased cholesterol. And the third and the most important change that will occur is there is activation of HMG CoA reductase enzyme, which is the chief enzyme of the cholesterol synthesis pathway. And so more and more cholesterol will be synthesized and esterified. So because of this, more LDL particles will form. All this will be a compensatory mechanism to against the proteinuria. So it is the body's mechanism to increase the levels of proteins due to loss of proteins. So the apoprotein B, C synthesis will also increase. This will lead to increased LDL in circulation, and it will also lead to increased triglycerides and VLDN, and all this will together cause dyslipidemia. Now let us look at the renal function tests, which are classified into three categories. That is urine analysis by physical examination, chemical examination, and microscopic examination. In physical examination, we look at the color, odor, and specific gravity of the urine, whereas and pH also. In chemical examination, we look at the abnormal constituents found in urine, whereas in microscopic examination, we look at the number of cast cells or pus cells, if they are present or not. Now, in assessment of glomerular function, we normally look at the clearance level. So because the glomerular function is semi-permeable and it does not allow all molecules to pass through it, so we check for renal clearance test. We also do proteinuria and hematuria in urine samples, and besides we also do blood analysis of urea and creatinine. Now comes the third type of RFT function, which includes the assessment of tubular function. The tubular function is to check how much of urine can it concentrate, which can be checked by specific gravity of the urine. The normal specific gravity of urine lies between 1.015 to 1.025. This is an indication of osmolality. In case of proteinuria in specific gravity, elevated. Earliest manifestation of renal diseases may be difficulty in concentrating of urine. When there is decrease in specific gravity, it is normally seen in increased water intake, in chronic nephritis, diabetes insipidus, whereas increased specific gravity is seen in diabetes mellitus, nephrosis, chronic renal failure. The third condition that occurs is isothinuria, in which the specific gravity of urine remains fixed at 1.010 in all conditions. So this is the earlier manifestation of renal damage. So this is how renal functions are used for diagnosis of nephrotic syndrome. The biochemical investigations in nephrotic syndrome to check the renal functions are given below. We collect two samples, chiefly urine and serum. In urine, we perform the dipstick test. We perform the protein and creatinine estimation in 24-hour urine sample. We do spot urine test for protein creatinine ratio, and we also can do urine culture test to check the microorganism infestation. Now, in serum we analyze creatinine, blood urea nitrogen, urea, total protein, albumin, A to G ratio, lipid profile, serum electrolytes, and a complete blood count. So all these investigations help us to find out the nephrotic syndrome and its severity in the patient. So please like, share, and subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon. Thank you. Have a good day.